So you've got a loyal following coming back from all. And I thought this was going to be the case today, because actually certain speakers have a lot of charisma, a lot of experience and views to share. And that's why anytime you're coming through, you're more than welcome to come and join us.
I'll be back in December.
When in December?
December 9th through the end, through the 20-something.
Book it a week earlier, and we'll have you. Because we're always on the first Sunday.
Oh, maybe I'll come first, and then I'll ditch my owner and install my own.
Yeah. You spare cake. Not a problem. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to the more than capable and competent Melina.
Yay! Thank you. Yay! There's more people coming in. I think if there's no seats here, grab one of these and pull them up. There's also these little stool guys here. It's all good. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Get comfortable, folks over here. You have the good deal, actually. Look at that. The side lounge is in effect. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Do you want to come in? Okay, cool. Welcome. I was just like, I will wait for the brown people. So thank you so much for coming. Really wonderful to see you here. Really great to be here. A couple of housekeeping things I like to stress because it's very easy for us when we're sitting in a sort of a classroom setting to feel like you're like, okay, I'm here to learn and she's the expert. I'm not the fucking expert. I'm just me. I have some experience. I have some shit to say. So if at any point I'm saying something that does not vibe with your ethics, who you are, what your belief system is, that's great. That's actually where we learn, is when someone says something and we're like, well, right, that's bullshit. Fuck this hoe. Those are great moments of learning. All I ask is that you not jump up and say, that's it, fuck you, hoe. Like, try to keep that to yourself for the moment. Second bit, this is a class about taboo topics, right? And so the reality is that there might be some sort of taboo thing that I say that is outside of your comfort zone. And that is fantastic. And I invite you to get the fuck out of here. If you need to leave, it will never hurt my feelings. In fact, when people walk out of my classes, I celebrate them with my heart. Because what that means is that they're taking care of themselves. So if I'm talking about some fucked up shit and you're like, woo, I'm having a reaction, please just go get the fuck out. I will not judge you. No one will judge you. Don't judge them. I'm telling you right now, no judging. It just means that someone's taking care of themselves, right? Right, great. Fine. I also need to keep track of time because I talk a lot. And I'm always like, did an hour go by? Could this possibly be? So, taboo. I want to start from the very beginning. Anyone know the origin of the word taboo, where it comes from? It is Polynesian. The origin of the word actually originally is tapu. And do you know what tapu meant? Sacred. Something that is taboo. The origins of taboo are things that were sacred and holy. And they were forbidden because they were sacred to God, or gods. Because frequently there was more than one, because one God can't handle that job, let's be real. These monotheistic people, I'm like, really? Your God is in charge of everything? So the idea that something was forbidden because it is holy and sacred is remarkable, isn't it? And we can see the wisdom of this, because things that were forbidden and holy and sacred were always forbidden and holy and sacred for a fucking reason, right? People back in the day didn't make shit up. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about anything except what really needs to be done. When you look at things that were taboo in the Torah, when you go back and you look at Judaism, for example, there's a whole list of things that they weren't allowed to eat. You know what? It was a good idea not to eat pork back in the day. Pigs carried a lot of parasites. We have, as human beings, eliminated those parasites, so now pork is safer to eat. But back in the day, eating a pig could have killed you. How do you stop people from doing shit? Say, don't do it? No. Because I don't know about you, but me, if someone's like, don't eat that, I'm like, it's probably delicious. Let me just check that the fuck out. But if you say, God will smite you dead if you eat that pig, you're probably going to like slow your roll a little bit. You might be like, well, maybe God will kill me or not. But if they said it's a thing, maybe I'm just going to eat some beef. I'm just going to have a sandwich. It's going to be fine. So the reality of things that were forbidden, things that were taboo, is that they were forbidden because they were sacred and holy for some reason. And then nothing personal white people, but white people came along and were like, oh, taboo must be bad. It's got to be a bad thing. And that's how the English language grabbed that word taboo, made it taboo, and made it something that was off limits because it was bad. But the reality is, when we think about things that are currently taboo, so often it is because it's something that scares mainstream society. It's something that terrifies other people, and they do not want you to access those things. Some things that are taboo are also extremely valuable, but we as a society are pretty shitty at splitting up those things. How many folks are on like FetLife, or if you're old and crusty like me, alt.com, bondage.com, collarme.com, anyone that old? And when you look at these sites, when people typically put up their kink lists, what are things that, like, quote unquote, everybody has on their absolutely no never list? No kids, right? No animals, no kids. What else do we see a lot of time? No shit. What else? What's another common no for a lot of people? No blood. Yeah, needles, blood, penetrating the body, taboo for a lot of people.
Body modification.
Body modification, fucking with your outside form. Some people have kissing as a taboo. I personally find kissing like super intimate, so I'm like, I don't know, people think I'm just gonna make out with you. No, stab you. You can fuck me, but the kissing we save for later.
Funny enough, sex workers have that rule.
Yes, this is absolutely true. This is a very, very common sex worker rule, right? It's interesting though. Let us think about like the big few, right? No kids. We can agree that's bad. No animals. People usually agree that's bad.
That's about it.
No poop. We have put shit next to two of the most horrific crimes we can commit. It's insane when you think about it, but shit is a huge taboo. But you were not born with that taboo. You were absolutely not born organically repulsed by your own feces, because I've changed babies. They are completely cool with being like, nah, 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 nah. They don't care. They're just like, this is a medium for my creativity. We have to tell them, that's bad, that's gross, wash your hands. They have to learn that, right? Other taboos are sort of more organic than that. Generally, people don't do the incest taboo very frequently. That's something that organically would kind of like not in a thing. However, oh my gosh, so taboo. Don't fuck your dad. How many people have been screaming out daddy while they're fucking? How many folks have been like, no, mommy, no, please, no. We're playing with this even though it's one of the most entrenched taboos in our society, right? We're still playing with it. We're not gonna fuck kids who are chronologically children, right? But if someone puts on a little skirt and has announced to you that they are now 12 years old and have stolen your best pen, you might whip the shit out of that bad little girl, might you? And say all sorts of terrible things to them. But that is because that taboo, that forbidden boundary, is something that's very sexy to push. And so we play a lot within those boundaries. What are the reasons that we usually give, for example, for the boundary around bestiality? Animals can't consent, right? Any animal consent to be in your hamburger? Just you wait. Are there any vegans or vegetarians here? You are excused. The rest of you are a little bit hypocritical.
Oh, okay.
Because I guarantee you, if you had a sheep in front of you right now, and in this door was an abattoir where their friends were getting slaughtered, and over here was a horny farmer with a greased dick, I bet you that sheep would back that ass up. Right? Quit it, rather than being killed. So is it about consent, or is it about our lack of desire to do this thing that we see as gross? I say it's the latter. Now, this is not me saying, please do not take this away and say Melina said that we should fuck sheep. Okay, I forget where I am, my goodness. But the reality is, it's a question of consent and what consent really means. And so this is why I do that little thought experiment to think about like why things are taboo, why things are forbidden. What are you forbidding yourself? What taboos are you curious about exploring, but you are forbidding yourself to explore? For whatever reason. Someone might judge me. You might think I'm fucked up. I have been judged for some of the things I have wanted to do. It's not fun. So many people suppress who they are because they are afraid of judgment, because you're afraid of being ostracized from a group. It takes a long time for some of us to get here to be kinky. For me, it took years. It took a full year of actively giving myself permission to be an African-American woman descended from slaves, and then to go and consider the consensual slavery was something to which I could have access. That was a lot of work for me to overcome the taboo of not wanting to betray the race. Okay? Like, that's tough work, but I fucking did it, and here I am with my collar on, feeling pretty fucking good about it. And this is part of, when we talk about taboos, the first thing you have to fucking do is to give yourself permission to be. You need to give your fantasies permission to exist. You have to accept them. Hopefully you can get to the point where you can celebrate them. You know why? Because they're fucking awesome. I don't care how dark your fantasy is. It is a beautiful aspect of who you are, because we are all multifaceted creatures. We all have this darkness. Everyone in here is not going to go out and become a serial killer. But everyone in here has the capacity to imagine what it would be like to desire to destroy another human being. Everyone who can't feel that can probably understand what it might be like to desire to be destroyed by another human being. This is also taboo, is it not? The desire for victimhood. The desire to be consumed by someone else. Also a common taboo. And I tell you, if you are someone who is a feminist, who is a strong, independent woman, it can become taboo to consider kneeling in front of someone else. Culturally, taboos are going to shift as well. I was teaching a class on taboo in Sweden, and I was like, I don't know what's taboo in Sweden. Like, what are the Swedish taboos? So I asked, I was like, oh, what's the taboo here? A bunch of people raised their hands. A woman raised her hand and said, female submission. And the whole room was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, what? The Swedes are so fucking egalitarian to the point where the idea of a woman submitting to a man and reinforcing the patriarchy is ridiculous. Don't even, like, in Sweden, in the Swedish scene, when women are like, I'm a submissive, other women are like, oh, honey, no. They're like, we need an intervention. You can be a dom all day, but to submit, that's the taboo there for them. And I was at the Pride celebration. Let me tell you, if you want to go to a Pride celebration, the Swedes are fucking knocking it out of the park. The entire city is gay. It's not just like flags and everything else. There's flags on top of flags on top of flags, and the entire state park is gay fun zone for a month. They paid to bring me out there. Swedish government paid for me to talk to people in fucking Stockholm about kink. I was like, bravo, Sweden. But the whole time I'm walking through these displays and the packaging, every single package that depicted anyone wielding an item, it was a woman. They are so intensely, heavily into this. So if you're a female supremacist, let me tell you, Sweden. But that was so shocking for me culturally. That was just weird. And I had not expected to get to a point where I was like, wow, who knew that, like, being a female submissive, which is like sort of an assumption in many circles, isn't it? If they see you, they're like, you're probably a bottom. You're probably a sub. Right? And so the taboo shifts. And one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves is to see where our local culture is influencing and or pushing us towards or pulling us away from our desires, from our edges, from what we may find to be taboo, right? Questions, thoughts, comments? Anything? No? Great. So one of the things I want to talk about, especially if you're going to be going into stuff that's taboo, understand that generally for most people, there's a deeper emotional, psychological, and spiritual weight for scenes that involve taboo stuff, right? And so when people are doing scenes that are edgier scenes, taboo scenes typically, I feel, fall into the realm of edge play scenes. And by edge play, I mean scenes that push you somehow. That's my very simple definition for edge play. And it's absolutely individual. Edge play is whatever pushes you towards your edge, right? And it's going to be different for everyone. Some people might look at a spanking scene and be like, how could a spanking scene be edge play? It's just spanking. That's not a big deal. But you don't know that person's history. What if this person is a survivor of horrible abuse? A spanking scene could be unbelievably difficult for them because it brings that back. I don't have that in my history. So for me, there's not that charge about spanking. Is that in the history, and does that bring a charge for many people? Yes, it does. There's so many fantasies and so much that so many kinky people take for granted. You're like, oh, I'm going to do a rope bondage scene. Rope bondage is no longer considered generally to be edge play. When it is, oh my fucking God. It's one of the riskier types of play we can do, and yet people are just casually like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm going to throw you up in a suspension. No, you're fucking not. I don't know you. Waterboarding. When that became cool, I was like, I'm done. I'm done with you people. I was like, fine, you can tie me up and stick me with needles and run electricity through it and pee on my head, but you are not. You're not pouring water up my nose. Are you crazy? Jesus Christ. So consider that there's a great deal of peer pressure, isn't there, to do edgy stuff. Like, I'm doing the cool scene, I'm doing the hot scene, I'm doing the thing that nobody else can do. Your edge is your edge. Take ownership of what scares you. That's your edge. That is edge play for you. That is taboo for you. What is taboo for me is not going to be taboo for you automatically. There are some things we can all agree upon, right? Like, for example, if you walk into a play space and you see someone in full Nazi SS gear with a big old swastika armband, I think we can all agree that's a pretty edgy choice. Yeah? Yeah. Why is there a unicorn? Oh my God. Okay, for those watching who cannot see, there is a unicorn. A massive unicorn. So it's important to figure out what I say taboo, personal thing with the edges and stuff. All right.
That's probably one of the least crazy things.
Anyone have a?
When you see it later on the cross, that was a bad unicorn.
If anyone has a unicorn fetish, yeah, there you go. Oh, hard limit. Yeah. I had someone who had a hard limit, like they hated the color pink. And so their edge play scene was that they had like 5 doms with pink floggers, like all around them, just going, yeah, take it. Little pink, little flowery, pink, little adorable.
Unicorns and boy bands.
Man, you know this kid. Okay, back to the class. Cool, serious. What was I talking about? Edge play. Edge play, yes.
Your edge play is not.
Thank you so much. Welcome to middle age. So it's important for you to take a moment and sit and think about what fucks you up. And really think about it. Get turned on by it. Jerk off to it. No one needs to know. Until they do. But the thing is that it's important for you to give yourself permission to have these fucked up fantasies. When I first met my wonderful husband and owner, and we were talking about our fantasy, it took him, I swear to God, a year until he started talking about the really dark shit that he fantasized about. Because he had a whole, like, witch-burning fantasy. And I was like, that's okay. I know you're not going to actually apply red-hot pincers to my breasts, but we can pretend. And after that, he was sort of just like, oh my gosh, I don't know why it took me so long to tell you. But the reality is, it's still sensitive. It's still very tender. So I'm not out here saying to you, just say your thing and fulfill your duties. Get everything you want, because it's hard. There are fantasies that took me a decade to fulfill. Even though I'm an expert pervert out there doing my shit, there was stuff that was still rough for me to admit that I wanted. And what was very interesting about those things is that my taboo, one of my big edges, was anything that allowed me to be the center of attention. Any scene that I felt I was being spoiled or pampered, couldn't do it. So for many years, the fetish that I had secretly hiding to be a pony, I hid for several reasons. Because first of all, I was like, I don't understand. What are they doing? They're standing around there. You're a horse. What the fuck? But then I tried on a pony mask and I was just like, I'm so cute. Oh my God, I am adorable. And then 10 years went by because I was embarrassed. Because I was embarrassed because I thought, what was I going to do? I'm just a pony, now I stand around, like, what the fuck? It was just not something that I was going to give myself. And when I finally did, 10 years later, it was fucking amazing. Because you know what I realized? The reason, like, the gut level fear that I had was that if I was not actively earning love from people, I did not exist. I had to do, I had to be perfect and amazing and awesome. I had to earn your love and your respect and your interest and your snacks. You know what ponies don't have to fucking do? Earn shit. The first time I did a pony scene, here I am, I have my little thing, and I'm like, this is stupid. I'm not a horse, I don't get the thing. And then a friend of mine, this little tiny white woman, because you can't stop them, runs and jumps on my back and is like, giddy up! And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Fine.
Yeah.
So it was an event like this, and the vendor had let me try on this pony thing. And I'm walking around, and suddenly, someone's touching me. I don't know about here, but you don't just touch people in the scene. And I was like, you know, like the thing where you can like fight, flight, freeze? I froze, and I was like, oh my God, someone's touching me. What the fuck? What the fuck? And then as I tune into what they're saying, they're like, oh my God, your pony's so pretty. She's talking to the woman on my back. And I'm like, I'm right here. And as she's petting me, I'm like, this is actually kind of nice. I really do like to have my head and my back stroked. So I'm just like, oh, this is cool. And then she's like, I think I have something in my purse, and pulls out like a little like Luna bar. She breaks off a piece and like, oh, did you put it in? And I'm like, oh, I got a snack. That's kind of nice, actually. I spent the next hour standing around and having people pet me and tell me how adorable I was. I didn't have to do shit. I'm existing and I'm adorable. I'm standing there and people are bringing me snacks. As a submissive, this is very fucking with my head. As a pervert, I'm like, wait a second, why was this so hard for me to admit I wanted? And I started thinking about my why, and my why was I always feel like, because I have self-esteem issues, I need to earn. I need to do in order to prove that I am worthy of X. Ponies don't have to do that. Ponies can just be like, I'm doing the thing. Now, some ponies do work. I'm not one of those ponies, I found out. They're like, pull this card. I'm like, sure. Snacks. But the thing is that I had freedom to play in ways that I never felt free, just as me. Me, Mo, has a hard time doing that. Pony Mo, who is Oracle, is her name. Oracle doesn't give a shit. Oracle is like, I am fine as hell, bring me a snack. You don't have snacks? Next. I'm not worrying about your fucking feelings. I'm just existing. And this is what taboo can do. It can get you to the point where you don't even give a fuck. You are just existing. You are in that dark place. And taboo play is not just for bottoms and their bottom fantasies. There's certainly lots of taboo play that involves what tops want to do, right? What are some of the common things that tops are supposed to do? Supposed to be nurturing, right? Supposed to take care of the bottom, make sure the aftercare is taken care of, respect limits, You know, what if you don't want to? What if you just want to destroy? What if, like you as a top, you have this dark taboo fantasy of destroying someone, just pulling them apart? Not consensual non-consent, for example, or non-consensual non-consent, like whatever the fuck it is. It gets dark in there, right? And the reality is, we are taught, which is right and good, that boundaries and respect and all of these things are important. But what if you want to play outside of that? Is it impossible? I do not believe it is impossible. I believe that we can push and play and sink into the darkest corners that we want to. What I do believe is that there needs to be a lot of care taken with those sorts of scenes. And the first care that needs to be taken is with you and your reasons and your why. There are taboo scenes that I have done that involve, for example, race. Okay? I personally need to choose carefully the person with whom I'm going to do that type of scene. The first reason might surprise you, and the first reason is that type of scene might destroy our relationship. There's a very real chance, because I have had the experience where doing a scene that was very intense went off the rails, and afterwards it negatively impacted my relationship with this other person. Are you willing to take that risk? Second part for me is, if I'm doing a scene that involves race, I need to know that the person I'm playing with acknowledges their own internalized racism. So if someone says to me, oh, I'm not racist, I'm not fucking playing with that person. Because you are. You can't live in a filthy society based on oppression and racism and not get it on you. It's on you. It's on me. If I were to say, for example, I am absolutely in no way, shape, or form any sort of phobic, that would be bullshit, because I grew up in a society that's definitely problematic. And so I need to work to make sure that I am a responsible, awesome person. Yeah. And I need to do the best that I can. And the reality is, when we're playing with these edges, when we're playing with these taboos, when we're moving into a very dark space, it's important for you to know who you are traveling with. It's important for you because when you're at the depths of that darkness, when you are seeing your own monsters, or you're looking into the face of someone else's monster, you better know that there's a lifeline that's going to bring you back up to the light when you're out. Because this is the reality. Much of what we do is psychological drama and some sort of role play, right? But the reality is, for things that are taboo, one of the shortcuts is that we have a built-in fear switch around those things. Part of what makes a taboo is that there's a concern about doing it. You don't want to offend the populace. You don't want to scare the kids. You don't want to be rejected as a weirdo and a freak and a fuck up. So there's a certain degree of fear that's living there. And so I believe that when you do those scenes, when you're playing with that fear, it's very fucking real. If I'm pretending to be a naughty schoolgirl, I know I'm not actually 12. I'm never going to truly embody that. But if I say I'm going to do a scene where I am the victim of a racist boss, that's very real. If you're doing a scene where you are recreating an assault, for example, and the reason you are recreating that scene is because you are a survivor of assault, and what you're trying to do is to change that narrative for yourself, to move into a different space of power, which is something that a lot of edge play scenes can do for folks. You certainly absolutely should know your reasons why you're going into it and trust the other person that you're going in there with. And this is not just for the bottoms. Please know that taboo and edge stuff is also the realm of tops and dominant people. Dominants are not dispensers for your fantasies, right? Tops have feelings too. I know it's weird because they're such evil bastards so much of the time, and that's of course part of the reason we love them. But understand that as a dominant and as a top, or as someone who is doing the bad thing, you are the one who is the abuser. You are the one who is the perpetrator, whatever that is. You also have limits. You also have walls that you can run into. You also have moments that can be very difficult for you because you have pushed yourself beyond that boundary. I did a scene many years ago with someone who was a friend of mine. It was definitely a race play scene, and it went really well off the rails. to the point where I wound up having several dissociative moments during the scene where I didn't know what was happening. I was completely out of reality. When that scene was over and it was time for aftercare, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with this person. And so what happened was he was left in the headspace of the abusive, evil racist, because I was not able to look at him and say, you're okay. It's okay. We're going to be fine. Instead, what I was saying was, get the fuck away from me, you son of a bitch. And so his reality was really shook as a result of that scene. And so this is what I tell people. I'm like, if you're topping in a scene and that shit is something that is core to the identity of the people who are playing, A, make sure that everyone has aftercare who's not the other person in the scene. And this is something that I strongly suggest for any edge play, any taboo stuff. Have other people who are not involved in the scene, but are like observing, they're just kind of around, who can then come in and get you the water and get you the blanket and bring you back and make sure your temperature is okay after these scenes. Because it is very often that giving that aftercare to the person with whom you have had that intense interaction can be really difficult. It might not work out. So this is a recommendation that I make. The reality is, whatever you need to get through that scene is fine. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So many times people are like, oh, well, you shouldn't need X, Y, and Z. Get whatever the hell you need. Get all of your needs met. Be selfish. We don't lie enough on that word. Selfish. Why is selfishness seen as so bad? Who else is going to think about my needs first and foremost? Nobody. And in fact, it's nobody else's job but mine. When I first came into the scene, there used to be this whole like, oh, subs can't, subs shouldn't, and I'm like, fuck that shit. I need to advocate for myself. So this was part of the reason that I became, a little unpopular with certain types of dominant people. And that's okay. My life has certainly not suffered as a result of that. Yeah. Questions, thoughts, comments, something that came up? Yes.
Just the reflection, isn't it, on the, I have my taboos, I sometimes think as a dominant, I don't do, because it's almost the guilt, and it's trying to, that worry of I guess, the guilt that's going to come afterwards, and so how do you deal with that? It's terrible.
Dealing with guilt.
But you've enjoyed it.
But you've enjoyed it, yeah. Here's the thing. One of the things I like to let people know to do before you do a scene that might be fucked up is to do exactly that, like a thought experiment. So I've done the scene, I feel bad. What do I do? How do I deal with it? Part of the thing that's important, I find, is to make sure that you reconnect with the person who you did the scene with. And here's the drawback to that. Sometimes they might not be ready to deal with you immediately. So while you're negotiating the scene, take a moment with that person. Maybe even record it or write it down and say, you are fantastic and I trust you. And I know you're not actually a Nazi. And I know I'm not actually a prisoner of war. And you're cool and you're wonderful. And even if it takes me a few days to get back to you, have them record a voice message, a thing. Have something to go back to, the grounding in the default world where you're both not high on endorphins, right? And have that discussion and establish that connection, because that will give you something to go back to if you're a little bit shaky in the aftermath. And learn to enjoy guilt, right? I will tell you, there's times when I feel guilty about something and I love it. I love feeling bad. I'm just like, oh my God, I did that thing. Do you know what I mean? That kind of that delight in the naughty, right? That can be part of it. And understanding, depending on what you're doing, that what you've done is tap into some deep and ancient shit. You've gone to the root of humanity, which is fight or flight, kill or be killed, fuck them up. That is where we go when we do these taboo types of scenes. Whatever the taboo is, I promise you, there's an aspect of your psyche that is broken open and raw when you do these scenes. And if you come back and you see that guilt about that, part of what you can say is, whew, I'm a human being. I'm a human being. Human beings are complicated. Human beings are both capable of incredible acts of love and passion and capable of astounding acts of cruelty and abuse. And you are now a part of that glorious tradition. And you didn't even have to go to jail. right? Like, this is the thing. You're like, I get to do it without going to prison. You had a question? Yes.
Yeah, you said that the only is called oracle.
Yes.
Would you say that these associate with another name or with another identity could help to overcome the taboo
Yes.
challenge? Or is it dangerous because then the taboo is transferred to someone else?
Also, yes. Talking about both of those things are potentially really true, right? Assuming a persona, stepping into a character saying, like, let's step into the Nazi thing. I'm an evil Nazi. Da, 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 da. Oh, I got a perfect example. Okay, look. My spouse Meister is Austrian. His family was on the wrong side of the war. Like, really, really, really on the wrong side. In fact, on the cover of his memoir, he wrote a memoir that was just released last year. You see a picture of him, probably 3 or 4 years old, beautiful, perfect Aryan child, like this, crying, with his whole face devastated. And his brother found this photo and gave it to him, and he was like, I can't show this to anyone. I'm like, you are showing it to everybody, sir. If you put sir afterwards, you can say whatever you want. Try it at home. I'm going to get an angry letter from some citizen. I tried it at home. I'm typing this on a cage in the basement. And so for him, that type of play, which is a very, it's one of the #1 forbidden fetishes, right? He was like, I will never, ever, never will I ever do any scene that involves Nazism. And I said, I respect that. If you change your mind, there's going to be a lot of bitches waiting for you to yell at them in German. Years went by. He's like, nope, not going to do it. Nope, not going to do it. He met a friend of mine whose family, she lost 3/4 of her family in the Holocaust. And he was afraid to meet her because he was like, what is she? And I was like, they met, they embraced. And her thing was, isn't it amazing that in our lifetimes, the two of us can connect as friends and love one another when our ancestors were so far away from that just 2 generations ago. And that broke something open for him. He was like, oh my gosh, and he was embraced and he was loved and it was amazing. And then when there came a point where I was doing a taboo play class with a demo, and I was like, I don't want to do the demo, I'm going to get someone else to do it. And I said, would you be interested in maybe doing a little thing? And he was like, maybe. And I spoke to my friend and she was like, oh, fuck yes. She was like, abso-fucking-lutely, because this was something she had been curious about, but was an extreme taboo for her as a Jew to go and do a scene where she was playing, quote unquote, with this type of energy, with the energy that destroyed her family. Like, this is how deep taboo shit can get. So we decided to do the scene. We kept it very simple. It was going to be her, it was going to be him, it was going to be like a 10-minute interrogation, that was it. She doesn't speak German. So basically it was just him like coming at her with the energy. Sorry?
Just reciting your menu.
Yeah, well, like coming at her with the thing, right? And what was interesting was that, they did the scene, they did the demo, and then afterwards, both of them broke. Both of them collapsed into one another's arms. Both of them had this moment where the energies, because I don't know what your belief system is, but my belief system is that we are all energetic beings living in bags of meat.
Mm-hmm.
And that energy is neither created nor destroyed. I believe it continues to exist. And what I believe happens when people do shit like that is that they pull on energy fields that are around us. And they pulled in an incredible type of energy. And it was an energy of healing. Because at the end of this moment that was viscerally terrifying for her, she checked out within 90 seconds. Generally, it doesn't take 90 seconds for someone to hit space in a scene. That's pretty fucking unusual. However, this was real for her on a level that she didn't even anticipate. She told me later, she was like, I did not see that coming. He started talking and she said the room evaporated. She couldn't even really see him. It was just this blackness. This is what taboo does. It pulls us to places that are real. They exist in our hearts and our minds and our energy. It's very real. And the realness of them coming back to present day Portland, Oregon, with a couple hundred people sitting there like, the reality was they had a moment of healing. They healed stuff in one another they didn't even know was wrong. And it was incredible. And the thing is that type of scene is considered pretty fucking taboo. But let us also pay attention to the point that he did not have the full uniform. He was not wearing the armband. So when people are like, yeah, I need to do all this fucked up shit in order to, oftentimes people are just trying to like look the look and be sort of creepy because they did that scene and had that experience with no costumes. It was just two human beings because that's what it ultimately is. And that's what taboo is about. It's about what people do to people. But also it can be about triumphing over what people do to people. For me, the taboo scenes that I have done have been amazing because what they have done is shown me my resilience and my capacity to absorb hate or pain and to heal it out. And it has been a very remarkable journey for me. And that's part of the reason why people do these scenes in the first place, is the journey. What's going to happen to me when I come back, right? Not every scene is going to change you entirely as a person, but they might kick a little dent in you as a person. And now you got that little dent and you're like, for the rest of your life, you're like, ooh, check that out. Let me tell you how I got that dent. And it becomes part of our story, right? In a way that a standard regular ass scene might not. I can't recall every spanking scene I've done, but I sure as fucking tell you every scene I've done that had an edge to it. One after the other. I'm like, yeah, let me tell you about that time I got spit on. Spitting is an edge for me. It's on my hard limit list. My hard limit list is very short. Spitting initially was not a thing I even thought about. It wasn't until someone spit on me and I lost my entire mind that I realized that it was a problem. A lot of times taboo things, edges, are things that you're going to stumble over. I don't know why the spitting thing is a thing. No one had ever spit on me, so it wasn't a memory on my body. But who knows, perhaps in my DNA, there's some terrible memory that was activated when this happened. And so this is the warning I want to give, is that edges are sometimes things that we stumble on, right? You can be doing a scene and be totally cool and suddenly realize you've lost a bit of who you are. Because sometimes these taboo subjects, these taboo moments are not obvious to us. They're buried in our subconscious. And so sometimes we have to sort of fall into them, fall over them in order to see them. And we need to give ourselves what is the word I'm looking for? The compassion with ourselves to see those moments, to see that darkness and to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to play with it. I'm going to see what happens when I sink into this ugliness, when I sink into the part of me that wants to be destroyed. Because that can be scary too, right?
Yes.
When you're saying to yourself, tear me up, shred me apart, destroy me entirely. That desire for self-elimination, terrifying, right? You ever have that moment? I just saw on the news, there's a name for it, and I can't remember what it was. Like you're standing at the edge of a building or a subway platform. You don't want to die, but you want to jump. Call of the void, thank you. The call of the void is so much of what we're doing here, isn't it? I want to jump. I don't want to die. I want you to catch me. Let us both jump together.
But the top must enjoy it too.
They better. It is about, and I put enjoy in quotes, like whatever enjoyment means to you, but it's absolutely for everyone. This is the reality. Especially if you're doing a scene that is edgy or taboo, please make sure that everyone involved is fully invested in it. If you're going to do a scene where as the top or as the dominant, you are about to fuck somebody up real bad. Let's go back to the Nazi things. Let's say you're doing a whole like Maria von Trapp escaping the Nazis in The Sound of Music, right? We've all seen that. Have you seen that? You know who hasn't seen that? Austrians. My husband had never watched it. I'm like, how do you not watch The Sound of Music? It's all we know about your country. Well, that's not true. Mozart, Sound of Music, Falco. We had Rock Me Amadeus. Everyone knows that, right? So it was. Hold on, lost my train of thought. What's that my thing with the thing? Sound of Music, right? So let's say you have this scene, and you're like, you're going to be the evil dude, evil Nazi guy, and you have like your Maria von Trapp authentic dirndl that you bought from fucking Graz, and you've got like little goats to scamper around her while you're abducting her, and you've got like, you know, a choir of people singing, like whatever. And you get there and you're like, I am just not feeling Nazi today. I don't think I can do it. I'm not feeling it. However, you've got the dirndl. This bottom has been waiting for 3 years. The goats! Call the scene. Never be afraid to say, stop, no, red, stop it. Especially if you're doing edgy shit. Please, my God. And if you are a bottom, don't make your little pouty face if the top needs to stop the scene. Because what they have done is shown that they respect you. What they have done is said, you know what, I am not here for this right now. I need time, space, energy. Or maybe they need to not do it. But the reality is safe words and stopping and edges are mutually there and as dangerous for everyone in the scene. Being the bottom does not mean that you are suddenly more at risk. You are not. You are not more at risk. The risk is equally shared. I want to also stress, I think I mentioned it before, but I want to stress again, if you are doing these types of scenes that are very edgy, it's really helpful to have someone else involved in the aftercare, whatever the aftercare looks like. And in fact, I always recommend for rough scenes that tops have someone to help them with aftercare. Because a lot of times, if you've been fucked up and you're the bottom, you are not necessarily there to be supportive and helpful and awesome and be like, you're okay, you're fine. I know you're not an evil Nazi. Someone needs to be there to do that though. So try to have someone else involved if you at all possibly can. How much time do I have? 10 minutes, great. 12 minutes. Ooh, it's fight. Questions, thoughts, comments, stuff and things. Yes.
So you mentioned earlier on that you should know who you're playing with.
Mhm.
What if they don't really know themselves, and it is through the process of playing at the edge that they discover themselves? Because I feel like on the one hand, it's kind of, well, in my case, they're at the top and the bottom. And I feel like it's a way for them to discover themselves.
Yes.
And on the other hand, there's this kind of unraveling that happens, and you find these new things.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily ready for like what happens, and like I'm also obviously not a shrink, so yeah, I feel like
This is the thing about that conflict. That conflict means that you are actually thinking ahead as to what might happen. Taking a risk of that nature is fine when the risk is acknowledged. This is an extreme sport. I consider BDSM to be an extreme sport. Yeah. And when we do extreme sports, we take a certain degree of risk. And I personally believe, especially if you're playing with someone that you like, and you're having these conversations that it sounds like you're already starting to have, acknowledging the risk is what you do. You say, you know what? But you say everything you just said, and I do still want to engage in this. What are our risks? What do we think is the worst thing that happens? Right? There's always like the worst thing that happens. And then there's the X factor. You always have to throw in the thing that I can't even imagine happening that might happen. And if you are prepared to take that risk, if you are ready to say, this might hurt, emotionally even, this might be a spiritual stumbling block, and I want to do it. To me, that is a eyes wide open acknowledgement of risk, right? Risk aware. This is part of the whole RAC thing. Risk aware consensual kink. If you're aware of the risk, and you are aware even that you don't even know what the risks are, and you're still being called to do it, I personally believe that that's all right. We're adults, we can take that risk. And then you say, if things go wrong, if I start to hate you, if I want to scream at you and pull your face off, what do we do? And you make a fucking plan. And then you try to stick to it, and then you don't stick to it, and then you make another fucking plan, right? It's experimentation. This is a lab that we're in. And give yourself permission to fuck it up. Give your partner, even more importantly, give your partner permission to fuck it up. And are you ready to embrace and forgive them if things do go in a way that is scary? And if you can honestly look inside yourself and say, yeah, I know that I can see beyond the error, the mistake, the drop, the problem, the stumble, to the person, and know that their intention is a pleasurable scene, but it didn't quite go right. It is my belief that because this is what I've seen, that when you know going in that the person's intentions are in line with yours, that if shit gets fucked up, you have a far better opportunity to repair it because you're keeping focused on a human being that you care about and that you trust. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's a vulnerable moment. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
What's your thoughts on not jumping in straight into the deep end, but approaching it a step at a time?
My approach to my personally, I'm always for the one step at a time approach. I'm 100% for like take things slow, do a little thing. But I also know that we're maniacs. Yeah. And that all it takes is the hot person and the hot idea, and you're like, woo! Thank you very much. I will figure it out later. But the reality is, as long as you're prepared to take that hit, fucking do it. Do it. I'm not going to be the one to be like, oh, be cautious, whatever. Be cautious, be whatever. But if you're like, fucking go. And then be ready for the aftermath. And be ready to clean up your shit. And be ready to clean up someone else's shit. And be ready to forgive actively. And be ready to accept the apology. Be ready to accept the hit if the hit comes. Right? This is the thing. Approaches have to be person by person. There are people who ski. I think they're fucking idiots. I will look in your face and be like, you're stupid as hell. Why would you do that? But do people pay thousands of dollars a year to not run into trees? Yes, they do. So someone might think it's crazy for you to jump in and you've been doing this for 3 months and you're going to do a 5-top gangbang takedown scene with needles, electricity, and 5 people dressed like, you know, King Kong, covered you in peanut butter, and then staking you out over an anthill. That might be like this your 6 months in thing.
What's the video on that?
Because you're just an extreme motherfucker. Fine.
That comes to the category.
Fucking do it. Fucking do it. And be ready for the crash if the crash happens. And if the crash doesn't happen, bravo. You fucking did it. Right? And how glorious is that? Yeah. Because the face plants are still awesome. What is it they say? Any accident you can walk away from? I actually do not believe that there are bad scenes or fuck ups. I believe that there's opportunities to learn. Did you live? Learn some shit. Do it differently next time. Do it better next time. Or do it worse next time if it wasn't fucked up enough for you. Because that's often true too. Yes.
So if you're a bottom walking into an Edgeplay scene, then am I enjoying this? Might not be the question you're asking, yourself throughout, because it's not necessarily for pleasure. It might be for all sorts of other whys. What is a question that you might be able to ask yourself to see whether you should actually now say word and stop it?
Excellent question. For those who might not have heard, it was a question about what you do if a scene is getting to the point where you're overwhelmed too much, maybe trying to figure out if you need to safe word because it's too much and you want to stop, or it's just part of the process, sort of thing. This is something that I feel oftentimes needs to be learned by experience. This is the fucked up thing. Like a lot of times people want to say, like, here's my formula. There's no fucking formula. You're gonna fuck this up. You're probably gonna say, I can take it, and then look back and be like, I couldn't take it. Here's what I encourage folks to do. I encourage people to take responsibility for their own actions, but not take responsibility for the aftermath of the actions if things hurt or if things are fucked up. If you don't say for it and the scene goes off the rails, it doesn't mean you're a bad bottom. It means things got fucked up in that one scene. One of the things that I encourage people to do is to remember that checking in is also useful, right? Like if you're at the point where you're like, I don't know, I kind of, say it, communicate that with the person or people you're playing with. Let them know that you're hitting a sticky patch, right? Because sometimes they're also in the sticky patch. And sometimes what they need is to hear that you are also having a bit of a moment, especially because in an Edgeplay scene, a top is not only holding your space, they're probably holding their own space, and shit might be really rough. So a check-in might be a really great way to do that, to set up a moment where you're just like, are we cool? Are we here? And if there's any doubt on anyone else's part, call it. There have been 2 times. 1.5 times in my life, and say definite one, maybe a second, in my life where I stopped the scene because I saw that the top was about to leave. Like I made eye contact with this person. I was like, woo, 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 woo. I don't know who you are. Red, stop the fucking scene because he was gone. And then like literally, like it took 10 seconds and he started blinking. He was like, cool, that was super intense. I'm like, yeah, could you return me, please? Thankfully, I was not so far gone that I was not able to witness that. I'm not sure what would have happened. Well, actually, you know what would have happened if I was not aware. I would have wound up in the hospital with a chunk out of my neck because he was biting me so fucking viciously. But thankfully, I was able to be like, can we back off with the biting a little? You know, but this is the reality, is that it is a fucking crapshoot, right? And the hope is that by checking in, by seeing where the other person is, that you can make an informed choice. You know, does that make sense? Cool, thank you. Awesome question. And do we, am I about to start now?
I think we're just about on time now, unfortunately.
Wonderful. So I wanted to say, first and foremost, thank you for being in this basement, which is a bit warm for me as a middle-aged lady.
On and off.
Second thing is, I have an intensive that I am doing on the 8th of this month. And if you register for it today, you get a deep discount. It is only £99. It is up near Birmingham and Birmingham. The original one, you silly. It's so weird how much of the shit that's like here is also in the US. And you're just like, oh my god, we told you so too. Like New York. I'm like,